Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So as a follow-up to the updated Paragon optimization guide with level 20 glyphs, we updated that for the Whirlwind Berserker. So now I'm going to update for all the Necro builds that I've covered so far, which will be the Summoner build, the 2 Bone Spear variants with minions, and also the 3 Blood builds. We have Blood Surge Army with a Blood Wave, and also a solo without minions, Blood Orb Search, and focusing more on Blood Orb and Blood Search and Blood Wave. So without further ado, let me go dive right into the Paragon board. Generally speaking, there aren't really much changes to the other stuff like the skill tree or the gear. It's more of the Paragon board, how we want to optimize now that we know what the values of the level 20 glyphs are like. So, but one quick thing just to note is that for the Summoner build, I did incorporate taunts in. Because I realized that it's actually very easy to get high taunts on the minions, and might as well get it. It's a decent source of damage. So all we need is just the needle flare aspect and taunts gems. So we do lose some survivability with this. But if it works out if it turns out that we need more survivability, then obviously we get stuff like the rubies that give us 4% life. Okay. But as of now, yeah, this is the setup. Now, with regards to the Paragon board, you'll notice that the crowd control value is really, really good. And obviously there's a reason for this, right? Because bosses can't get crowd control except during their stagger period. But the additional bonus is also very nice, especially given the fact that we are using cold mages in this build, right? And the cold mages are also helping us trigger vulnerable. So you notice that I've used the crowd control gems here. You can also use the vulnerable. It's just that it takes time for you to build up towards the vulnerable, whereas crowd control is always there. And more importantly, the reason why I'm using the crowd control board here is because the scaling on this is a little ridiculous. And it's actually very, very high because it's 14.4%, double the usual 7.2% damage. Of course, because it's conditional, but it's actually easy for us to apply crowd control with the Crapify, with the cold mages, right? So this is why we have gone with this here. Now we only have a minimal amount of intelligence here. We definitely can get more intelligence points, but I decided to go prioritize on getting the more nodes on the other bots, because this is the bonus to me is more for the Corpse Explosion damage. So it's okay if we don't max out this node here because we really do not have enough nodes. You can see that I have dropped some stuff. I'm not even getting this particular node here that gives us more skeletal moral damage because I drop it to get, say, something like one more dexterity node here in this board where each 5 dexterity node gives me 19.2% increased damage. So that's better than 8.5, right? So the board layout, I didn't actually change it as well. Okay, we have from our starting board, we go get our cult leader. Obviously, we are doing a summoner build. Then we have the 2 other boards that are more generic across all the necromancer builds, which is Flesh Eater and Scans of Death. Especially Flesh Eater's legendary effects really, really good. But you should always be consuming corpses in one way or another. Okay, and then we have the golem board. Now, right off the bat, if you are sharp, you'll notice that we actually dropped this entire node cluster here, where we get some critical strike damage as well as damage to healthy enemies. Otherwise, there's no way for me to get more damage across all the different in the radius. But I'll talk about that later. So some tweaks and sacrifices have definitely been made. If I'm not wrong, I also sacrificed this, yeah. But it's okay because anyway we are using a necro, so all resistance have a diminishing return as opposed to say armor, which is why you see I didn't drop the armor, I dropped the resistances. Okay, so in general, right, the first 2 bots are actually very straightforward. For crowd control, we get a minimum because we want to focus more on the other nodes. For the Dead Razor here, Dead Razor is crazy good, okay? Because I mean, initially when I first done the build, when I did the build for this, I was saying like how good this is in terms of synergy, right? It perfectly multiplies all these nodes here, both the magic and the rare, Likewise, this as well. And here, it's 192%. It's almost triple. Which means here initially we have 25% damage reduction and 25% medium damage. Triple is 75% damage reduction and 75% damage. Almost. If I were to make a closer figure, it'd be closer to 73 and 74 or 74. But you get what I'm trying to say here. It's huge. And on top of that, we still try to get all the nodes here because these are all important for a summoner build, right? Because they are your main source of damage. Next is the Flash Eater. You notice that we do get a lot more nodes other than just the traversing through it because we are trying to get the dexterity nodes. Because this is where we put our Skeletal Warrior. Because among the bots that we have here, between Hulking Monstrosity, Scant of Death, and Flash Eater, I mean, Cult Leader I'm not going to mention because Cult Leader, you just always have to use Dead Razor on Cult Leader. There's no other way about it. So between Flash Eater, Scant of Death, and Hulking Monstrosity, right? If you look at them, yes, these three. So all of their dexterity options are all bad. The only decent one is Flash Eater. Even though Flash Eater has like a highest intelligence, right? We will have to use Skeletal Warrior on the Flash Eater board so that we get the dexterity. The maximum number of dexterity, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus the 2 here. So that gives us 8 nodes of this, which is like what? 160%, 158, 59% damage for our Skeletal Warriors. So this is nice. This is good. Which is what this now you see why we drop some points here and there, right? So then funnel into all of this so that we get more damage, more points, right? Okay. So effectively it's extra 60%. As we drop this, we get extra 60% on Skeletal Warriors because the other remaining percentage is the base that we need for the additional bonus anyway. And then we move on to the Scant of Depth, where you'll see that I'm actually putting the Golem Glyph here. Because, again, referencing back to the board, the Scant of Death, between these three boards, the Scant of Death is the best option for willpower. The highest number of willpower nodes right here. So you see, the guide that I talked about previously, right, it really comes into play. Like knowing the maximum number of a specific set stat within the radius of a board. So you see here, we are getting a lot of the willpower nodes, right? 1, 2, basically all 8 of them. Yeah. And it's pretty efficient in the sense that there are no like out of the way nodes that we have to get. It's all kinda along the way. So that's nice. And you notice that I even have to drop this, right? Because we really just don't have enough nodes. We have to put our a lot of different other nodes to maximize each of these damage within the radius. So Golem dealing 19.2% increased damage is really nice. And again, if you compare it to the base amount, right, we are getting an additional 5 because base you will get 3 normal nodes plus the 2 here. Now we have 8 normal nodes plus the 2 magic nodes, so we have 10. So it is a lot of additional damage. It's basically one additional 100% plus 100%, almost plus 100% increased damage for the golems. And next, moving on to the Hulking Monstrosity board, we are using the Mage Glyph because Hulking Monstrosity board has 10. We couldn't use Flash Eater because we have to use the Skeletal Warrior on Flash Eater. So we are using the Skeletal Mage on the Hulking Monstrosity, which in turn gives us the highest amount of intelligence nodes that we can get here, which is basically 14 of this bonus. 10 from the normal nodes, another 2 from the rare node each. So 10 plus 2 plus 2, 14. So our skeletal mages deal a lot of damage. 280%. Minus lower it by a little, it's like 278, 279, or 277. You know, I get the gist of it. There's a lot of additional damage. The Glyphs at level 20 for the minions. Okay, so this is how a full summoner Paragon board will now look like, where we effectively, other than those that is not scaling together with the number of stat nodes that you have, we pretty much get to maximize all of them. We maximize the Warrior Glyph, the Golem Glyph, and the Mage Glyph. These we do not need to maximize, but we do at least get all the magic nodes that do get bonus from this. And I really do not have enough to get more crowd control, so we stick with the bare minimum for crowd control. Okay. Alright, so this is it for the Summoner build. Now let's move on to the Bone Spear build. That's going to be I need to cover. So for the Bone Spear build, thankfully we are still able to get this, yeah. And our Bone Graft, if you look at this here, you notice that we take a slightly roundabout path, but mainly because we are maximizing the dexterity that we can get here, because we are putting Essence here. The Essence Glyph is crazy good. Core skills deal plus 19.2% critical strike damage. On a Bone Spear build where you have high crit rate, this is really, 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 really good. Okay? It's like a 320% crit damage on the board per 5 dexterity that you have. Not to mention the additional bonus is really good as well. Okay. Now, generally speaking, if it's other builds other than Bone Spear, it might be worth considering getting this as well. But you do need a high enough CR on your gear. And you have to understand that, let's say if you have 50 CR, then effectively the actual value that you get out of this is half. It's like 10 damage, 10% increased damage. Something like that, not exactly, but more or less. But what it means here is that in this board, which is Bone Graft, by maxing out the number of dexterity that we can get, it's 7 over here for the normal nodes plus another 2 from the magic nodes. We basically have 9. 9x of the 20%. I'm just gonna round this up to 20%. So that's like 180% crit damage, or 178, 177, whatever the number is. So it's really, really good. It's crazy good on a Bone Spear build where you already naturally have very high CR, very high critical strike chance. So yeah, getting all of these dexterity is definitely worth it. In fact, we are effectively getting an additional 80% crit damage, or 79.2% if you want to be exact. So yep, we maximize getting the number of dexterity nodes for the high amount of crit damage. We move on to the next board, which is the Scans of Death. And Scans of Death, we are getting vulnerable here. Because what's the next important thing for a bone build? It's crit damage followed by vulnerable, right? Because you're always getting vulnerable on a bone spear, bone spirit build, whatever the case is, bone skills. And we are still getting our healthy damage to healthy enemies. We are still getting our legendary node, the Scans of Death. And you see here, these are the dexterity nodes that we're going for. Now, Scans of Death, in terms of dexterity nodes, is not the highest. So there's some nuance to this, because the next board is Flesh Eater. And you notice that I have to drop some stuff, right? I basically dropped this. Yep, we dropped this. I just couldn't afford getting nodes on this. Okay, but it's definitely worthwhile getting more vulnerable damage for sure, 7.2%. And more importantly, what I want to talk about is in terms of the option between these two boards, between the Scan of Death and Flesh Eater, their glyphs are actually interchangeable per se. So on one end here, we have Flesh Eater gives us the highest amount of intelligence nodes, which is 11. Okay. And that allows us to max out our control glyph here, which is pretty crazy because control has a very, very high increased damage, right? And when I have 11 normal nodes plus 2 from here and essentially 2 from another of this rare node, right? That's 15 of this bonus. It's 15 times basically 14.4. It's crazy. It's 200 plus additional damage. Yes, I know that it's crowd control, but people are, how should I put it? People are a bit too over focused on the crowd control, not being on applicable on bosses, because you gotta understand that in a Bone Spear medium build where I have cold mages constantly chilling, I have my Decrepify, I have my other different types of attacks all ongoing, I believe that the stagger rate is actually pretty high. And once you get your stagger going on the bosses, you're going to deal a lot of damage because it's additional plus 200% plus percentage, which you do basically deal 3 times the damage within that stagger window. Actually doing it is not too bad. And more importantly, your clear speed on elite packs is going to be very high because of this. Now, going on back to the exploit being on the Scan of Death board, it feels kind of bad because there's only 4 dexterity average normal nodes, right? Plus 2 of the magic nodes. So technically speaking, you can actually switch the 2. Right? You sacrifice your number of control glyph bonuses from Flash Eater's 11 nodes to Scans of Death 8, and you buff your vulnerable or your exploit glyph from 4 to 6. So it's a trade-off of losing out one more node per se, because it's 3, the difference of 3 versus the difference of 2. And I'll show you guys later how the board looks like. But I can show you now. So basically, if I move to have control glyph here on the Scan of Death, I get lesser of these control bonuses. We get more vulnerable bonuses. So technically speaking, you have a better consistency in terms of your damage bonus with regards to vulnerable versus crowd control increased damage. Okay, but you do lose out quite a fair bit of the crowd control damage because you are losing out 3 times 14.4, right? Which is what? 43.2%. Okay, so this is getting additional 2 vulnerable, which is 14.4. So we are talking about 14.4% increased damage that is consistent versus a 43.2% that is consistent for all except for bosses. Oh, but to be fair, elite packs do have a sort of like a type of crowd control resistance where eventually they can become crowd control. They become unstoppable if you apply too much crowd control. But it's okay because I remember seeing before one of the dev updates that they double the amount of time it takes for elites to hit the unstoppable. So with the sheer amount of damage that we're having here, I believe that it's more than enough time for us to kill the elites before we hit unstoppable anyway. Okay, but obviously this is an assumption. Okay, so what this means here is that when we switch it around, we get higher consistency, lower burst with crowd control damage. Or you can do it with higher burst or higher elite pack clear speed, but slow. I can't say that's maybe a slower boss clear speed because, like I said, during the stagger period, it do a lot of damage. Okay, you've set up your gameplay rotation well, such that you maximize your damage during the stagger period, right? I don't think you will fall off too much. It might even be the same or even better. Hard to say. I honestly think that it's hard to say this. Okay, without actually testing it out, playing the game, because this is still pure theory crafting. I'm not one of the streamers that got least access to the game pre-launch. Alright? So with these, right, one other thing I want to call out is that you notice there's a additional 3 here remaining. 3 nodes remaining available that I have not spent yet. And this is a benefit that comes together when you go for more vulnerable, more exploit bonus versus control bonus. Why? It's the nature of the bots. The Scan of Death bot, for when you go for intelligence on it, right, it's a lot smoother. You don't need to spend additional stuff per se. Well, likewise for dexterity on the Flash Eater bot, the exploit glyph, it's also very smooth. There's no wasted node traveling. Whereas if you go the other way around, you maximize your control because of Flash Eater having 11 intelligence 5-star nodes, right? You'll notice that we have to kind of waste some nodes here. We got to traverse through this entire area. I mean, this portion is still fine, but there's some additional being spent here, and likewise for the dexterity, you have to spend some additional nodes, little additional nodes here and there. Okay, so much so that we have to drop this even, because if you look at this, I actually am able to get a little of it, right? I'm actually can afford a little of it, and I still have 3 nodes left, which means we can either go for more damage and additional 25% damage to injured enemies through these 2 nodes, or we can even go for more defense, additional armor, which is always nice. So there's some additional benefit in dropping your burst damage potential in terms of clearing packs and elite white mobs and elite packs. In return, you also get some other type of a little bit of other bonuses, which is decent. In return for a slightly higher vulnerable damage increase as well. Right. So doable. I leave it up to player's choice, really. I will put both of these mobs available for. I'll update the link. No, I actually don't need another link. The links are already provided, so you can. I always go to the build itself, this build planner itself, to look at the notes and you see if you want to follow accordingly for an endgame build. This is not a leveling build. Let's be clear, okay? Leveling build is going to be different, likely because there are other nuances to consider, such as the glyph radius being smaller. But endgame wise, yeah, this is looking good. And the last bot is very straightforward. The last bot is simply because we are doing Bone Spear with minions. It's just the cult leader bot with improving the minion damage reduction and survivability. Because if you don't get this bot when you're trying to get minions to increase our max essence, right? They're gonna die so fast that you're gonna lose on the max essence, and it doesn't make sense anymore to use them. So you gotta have to invest on the cult leader. But generally speaking, it's not too bad because the number of nodes that you need is actually very little. You just put it as the last board, and this is all the nodes that you need. It's pretty manageable. And it's a very good benefit in terms of like 75% damage reduction. Oh, sorry, 85%. I forgot the rare bonus here as well. It's 85% damage reduction. Oh, wait, I'm not sure whether this improves the bonus as well. Because if it improves the bonus as well, it's going to be very crazy. The amount of damage reduction that you get is crazy. I mean, obviously it's a diminishing, but it's going to be crazy good. Okay, and you notice that I dropped some minion damage because after all this is a bone spear centric build. The minions are there to improve the bone spear damage, although they do contribute later. But more importantly, we keep the attack speed nodes because we want the faster essence generation from our mages. Okay. Yep. So that's the bone spear build for in terms of the update with regards to Paragon board. What we are doing with the Paragons, basically we are maxing out our essence, our control, and our vulnerability. Or rather, between the vulnerability and control, there are some options with regards to which board to put them in. But in terms of allocating the nodes, we are maximizing them. Okay. Yep. And this obviously you just meet the base requirement. So yes, I do like how the level 20 glyphs are looking out for our boom build. And oh, I think I forgot to mention this, right? The very first one also gives a very nice amount of boost to our physical damage, which bone sphere is physical, all the bone skills are physical, and your minions are physical, other than cold mages. So yep, pretty good. Okay. So again, player's choice, which one you want to go for, more control or more vulnerability. Right. And that brings me finally to the last set of builds, which is the blood skills. Now, I did two videos for this. One was Blood Search and one was Blood Wave, right? Now, between the Blood Search army and the Blood Search with Blood Wave, Blood Search army with Blood Wave versus the Blood Search army with Golems, their Paragon Board used to be the same. But for now, what I've done is that I've also done a variant for the Blood Search Blood Wave board. Because, if you remember, we can only get us 5 bots total, right? So 4 bots if you exclude the starting bot. Blood begets blood and blood buff are pretty much mandatory for overpower builds. Okay, overpower blood sludge. So we are always getting this. The choice really, I mean, cult leader is there too because we have minions. We need to make sure our minions can survive. So the choice really is between Scans of Death and Flesh Eater. And I'll talk more about this later. But first off, let me just quickly run through the boss itself. So first starting board is Opera, because blood skills are physical, our minions are physical. We have Blood Drinker on the blood buff. And Blood Drinker is really good because it gives us so much fortification. And because of the 240% bonus to magic nodes, 192, 240% on Blood Drinker, we are getting all the magic nodes that we can get here. Yes, even the stat nodes, because these additional stats will help a lot in hitting the requirements on the later boards, coupled with gear. Okay, now you'll notice that I dropped the blood begets blood because while it's nice, it's not that impactful, given that the nodes here give you 10% and this gives 5%, although you can stack. But this is only 10%. This already has 10%. So I'd rather be using this, to be honest. And we drop this. By dropping this, it allows us to maximize other stuff. So take, for example, we can get all the magic nodes here, and we are also getting every single willpower that we can get on the blood begets blood board, which is actually also one of the best for willpower. Okay? And we are really getting all 8 of them. You see, we are committing and spending the nodes to get all 8 of them. So you see, we go here, and from here we go bottom, and from here we go here, and then go up as well. So we're really getting all the nodes that we can get with regards to the willpower. So that gives us, if I use the usual math to calculate, let's say from the bare minimum to the max, right? We're actually getting additional 5 normal nodes of willpower, which means based on this, every 5 willpower giving us 28.8% increased overpower damage. We're effectively getting an additional 148 percentage of increased damage. Okay, actually 1.2 times 5, 6, so 144. So 144% increased overpower damage just from committing these nodes here. So I'll say it's very, very worthwhile getting. Okay. In fact, I actually, while I was going through the board, I actually dropped this too, but eventually we managed to still get enough points to use this too, right? Because you look at this is 15%. If I drop this to get a willpower, it's worth it, because I get 28.8%. In fact, if I drop 2 of this to get 2 nodes, even if it's 1 node that allows me to traverse to a willpower, I'll still think that it's worth it, because that 1.2% in overpower damage that we lose, we do get the stats benefit. Okay. So that's blood begets blood. We are optimizing the dominate glyph and even the blood drinker glyph as well by getting all the magic nodes that we can get due to the bonus that it provides. And then we move on to card leader, which is pretty much standard, right? We do the razor again. Sorry. We do the razor again. Very, very standard stuff. But we don't even get the ATSP here, because I don't think we need to. We also sacrifice the ATSP cluster here, because the ATSP cluster for a blood surge build is really more for you to generate corpses at a slightly faster rate. It's okay to drop it for all the good stuff that we are getting from the Paragon board. And just think about it, 130% overpowered damage from the 5 additional willpower nodes. I mean, obviously you do spend a bit more than that in order to get to the 5 willpower nodes, but you get what I'm trying to say here, right? There's some value in dropping those. We still have our healthy, that's good. We still have our healthy node cluster. We still can get our Scans of Death node. And even the full board here, the full cluster here, plus this, lacking the dexterity. And here, in the Blood Surge army, there are 2 options, okay? One is you go the Scans of Death and get yourself the Undaunted, or you can go Flesh Eater and get yourself, again, Control. You can again get yourself Control. Like I said, I think I've talked enough about Control versus Vulnerability earlier when we talk about Bone Spear, so I'm not going to go into that detail again. But generally speaking, you'll see that the boards are different also because we are between these 2 glyphs, right? They are best maximized in the respective boards. So Control in Flesh Eater and the Scans of Death in the the Undaunted here for Willpower of Scans of Death is also optimized. If you look at Scans of Death, you have 8 nodes in Willpower. It's actually one of the best as well, right? I mean, Card Leader, although it has 8, but Card Leader you always be using Dead Razor, so it's always Intelligence. So the 2 best willpower boards are Blood Begets Blood and Scans of Death, which we are using them in this build. Both of this. So one in the one with the Undaunted and the other with the Dominate, Overpower. So with these here, basically what it means that we get 8 of we also spend our nodes to get all 8 of the willpower nodes here, the normal nodes. We also get the 2 magic nodes. So again, if I look at it versus like the bare minimum for the additional bonus, right, we effectively get an additional 5 nodes. So that's 5 times 7.2%. How much damage is that? 36% increased damage. Additional damage while we are fortified. And it's very easy to get fortified in this build. Okay, through the block ops. And also the skills, if I remember wrongly, this gives us Fortify, this gives us Fortify as well. And all our minions are going for the corpse generation. And we have Huge Flash as well. So that helps. So looking at this entire setup, right, I'll say that it's a player's choice, whether you want to go for the Scant of Death, Undaunted, or you want to go for the, let's see, Control. So it's a very, very similar argument between for the Bond Sphere build where you have Control versus Vulnerable, and in this case it's Control versus Fortified. Because the value of Fortified and Vulnerable is the same. Okay? But there's a slight nuance here, which is that if you go for Flash Eater, you get this, okay? You get the Flash Eater node, which, to be honest, I feel that the Flash Eater node is a lot better than the Scant of Death. If I'm just strictly comparing a if else case where I can only get one of them, if all case, like between Scan of Death and the Flash Eater, I'll definitely prefer Flash Eater, especially in this build where we have so many ways of. It's so easy for us to consume corpse. Like corpse consumption and generation is a critical part of this build, thanks to this. Okay, so Flash Eater is definitely nice. But at the same time, I guess you could argue to say that it's also good for Scan of Death, right? Because you either get the damage reduction or you get the increased damage. In the end, it's a player's choice kind of thing. Which one you want to go for? Okay, between Blood Surge, between Flash Eater or Scant of Death for the Blood Surge army build, whether you're using, it doesn't matter whether you're using Blood Wave or not. I'm just using these two builds which in the first wave have similar Paragon Boards to make a variation here for you to compare. You can also use Blood Wave with Scant of Death. You don't have to always use Flash Eater with Blood Wave in this Blood Surge army build. Because the whole Blood Wave versus the Golem is the setup in terms of, I think I have it somewhere here, right? Yeah, it's in terms of this, where it allows you to consistently spam your Blood Surge using Blood Wave, but you lose a Golem. So that's that. Now on then to the Blood Orb Surge Wave build, which is basically Blood Orb, Blood Surge, Blood Wave, right? But it's a solo build. There are no minions. Yeah, we are sacrificing all of our minions. And what we do get here in return. Oh, right. Actually, I should get this, right? I mean, you can also use this, by the way, because this is an overpower build. You can also use Sapphire. It should help with your maintaining your healthy with the damage reduction. Okay, so you'll notice that for the minionless build, right, the Paragon Board is pretty much the same. We are still maximizing our overpower here. The Dominate Glyph, we are also maximizing the number of magic nodes that we have here. For the Blood Ops Fortification, Blood Drinker Glyph. Only difference here is that we no longer need to get Cloud Leader. Obviously, you lose the Death Speaker's Pendant effect, right? But in return, we don't need to choose between Flash Eater and Scan of Death anymore. We'll go for both of them. But because the Scan of Death and Flash Eater, they both consume more nodes than the Cloud Leader, because this Cloud Leader is very, very efficient. What this means is that we actually had to drop some of the nodes here. You see we had to drop 2 of these overpower, 15% overpower damage nodes. Because like I said again, if I drop this and I get the willpower, it's still higher overall damage, almost double. Okay? In terms of the overpower increased damage. And you also notice that I drop another overpower damage here, you know. Oh, and more importantly, I had to drop this. I had to drop Blood Buff. Now I'm dropping Blood Buff here for this meaningless builds because the assumption is that this 50% overpower damage is additive and not multiplicative. If it turns out to be multiplicative, it will also be insanely good, which I highly doubt so. It should be additive. So 50% isn't much, right? I mean, I've been getting like 28.8% from 5 willpower. So spending that many nodes to get 50%, not that great. So this is what we dropped in order for us to be able to maximize both the control as well as the Undaunted on Scan of Death. Okay. In particular, the Flash Eater, although we have a lot of intelligence nodes available, is also very costly because you do have to spend that amount of nodes, right? I mean, you have 11 intelligence nodes, means you have to spend at least 11 nodes, and that's not count. That hasn't taken into account the nodes that you have in order to get there. So like as remember, if I didn't need to get so much intelligence, I wouldn't need to get these 2 willpower nodes. So that's that. So that's the sacrifice we are doing here. We sacrifice the 50% overpower damage. We sacrifice here, this as well. But although it sounds like I'm sacrificing a lot, right? But we'll still have very high overpower damage because this just gives you so much, right? We maximize this, which means that we already have 288% overpower damage just from the special effect here. And if I look at the stats, right, I already have 243%, and this 243% doesn't include the 288% I mentioned because this is still beta. They still have not included the Paragon Glyphs and Legendary Tiles. So if I add the 288 to this, right, I already have 500 plus. So that's why you'll notice that those are things that I drop in order for us to get more of these nodes, such as more fortified, more damage, increased damage during fortified, or more damage towards crowd control enemies, etc. So yep, this is how the Paragon Board optimization will look like now that we know how the level 20 glyphs are like. We know that we need to optimize those bots that do skill with it. And this is how it looks like. Okay. Yep. So these are all the tweets that I've done. And as usual, the links for the builds are all there in each of my video. There may be some that while I was doing and updating, I may have accidentally deleted or I did create a new copy or stuff like that. So I'll do one look through and I'll update all the links. No worries. All the links will be updated with the updated builds. Okay. And between the two variants, right, they are similar. You can even use them to look at the comparison that I've talked about, the two options, whether you want more exploit or more vulnerable for the bone builds or more control, more exploit. And the other one is more more control or more undaunted. Okay, so fortified versus crowd control or vulnerable versus crowd control. Okay, and with that, I'm done with updating the Necro builds. I still have two shadow build variants that I have not shared yet, but I'll probably move on to talk about Overpower HOTA Stunner build because I really like this build. There's a lot of stunning and overpower of HOTA involved, and you notice that I went for a 0 shout build because I'm kind of sick of the building for the theory crafting for barbarians to always have triple shouts. If you don't believe me, you look at the meta builds, you'll see it's always triple shout. So yeah, I don't like that. Okay, I shouldn't say that I don't like it, but I will prefer some variety. And that's where the Overpower HOTA Stunner will come in. And I'll talk about these two variants later. I even look at Weapon Master as well. And it looks like it will work out well too. Decent enough. So yep, my next video is probably going to be this two, Overpower. With a lot of fun synergy and being able to get a lot of fury through aspects and these skills here. Like instant full fury kind of scenario, and I'll talk about how it will work out. It will work out for that build, for this build. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I hope the updates to the Necromancer builds with the level 20 glyphs is helpful for you guys. And remember, these are endgame builds. These are not leveling builds. For leveling, obviously, things have to be adjusted accordingly. Okay. And I'll probably see if I can find time to do leveling builds. If not, then there's like a mirror of leveling builds available. And maybe I'll post in my community or the YouTube channel, just do a community post like which are the starter or leveling builds that I will follow if they matches what I would think to be the case. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content in my video, and please subscribe more. Bye.